First up, he wants to boost Europe's economic competitiveness, open up the single market and secure international trade deals. Next up, the Prime Minister wants to exempt the UK from the concept of ever closer union, have no more powers transferred to Brussels and give national parliaments a bigger say. Then David Cameron wants those countries like the UK who don't use the euro to be protected from Eurozone countries acting as a bloc and overruling the others. Finally, the big one, which many believe will be impossible, restricting EU immigrants' access to benefits, possibly for up to 4 years. For many European nations, this is a step too far. However, with the government publishing figures showing 43% of EU migrants receive benefits in the UK, it's seen in London as a crucial issue. Thank you. Well, we've been joined by the former Conservative MP Laura Sands, who chairs the European Movement, and by UKIP's trade spokesman William Dartmouth. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
Do you think it'll be enough, if not to satisfy you and your colleagues, but it would be enough to satisfy more of the British public?
No, this renegotiation is entirely trivial. What he's asking for doesn't amount to anything. This renegotiation is a charade which demeans the office of Prime Minister. And I have to disagree, if I may, with both you and your colleague. Fiddling about with benefits, you described it as the big one. It's not. It's a very little one.
But it's the big one for the Prime Minister, isn't it?
It shows the paucity of the Prime Minister's demands that it considered that fiddling about with the benefits could basically be described as the little one. Now, of course, I believe that either you're a political union or you're not, but a serious renegotiation would ask for a reduction in contributions, an end to open borders and a repatriation of fishing. And incidentally, repatriation of fishing was Conservative Party policy before David Cameron became leader. It's one of the reasons I left the Conservative Party after 35 years.
All right, well, let's go to... I mean, what do you say to that? Because for many of your Conservative colleagues, your former colleagues in Parliament, they will feel much the same.
Oh, there are a whole group of people who, whatever the Prime Minister was either asking or getting, would find it not enough. And so, in many ways, this has been set up by those people who want out whatever. That's not a problem. We are moving forward. Every organisation should be going through a reform programme. We should be demanding the best from all institutions that we sit at the top table with. And this is something we have got a clear set of asks of the European Union. And I hope and expect that we will get quite a lot of what we need.
In your mind, Digby Jones, listening to both William Dartmouth and Laura Sands, who is right? Is this trivial? Is this shopping list from the Prime Minister meaningless, a fig leaf? Or is it, as Laura Sands, important in a broader sense of changing the whole direction and nature of the EU?
It depends on the jury that's going to judge the word trivial and judge the word reform. You see, if this is a party political exercise where you've got a leader of a Conservative Party trying to sort out his backbench, then it's not trivial.
How does it look to you?
Well, the problem is I stand for business, right? And we've got a European Union that currently is marching valiantly towards 1970. You've got India wanting your lunch, you've got China wanting your dinner. You've got a globally competitive environment. You've got 520 million people living in peace for the first time, 70 years of sustainable peace. What a wonderful achievement. You've got a home, a democratic capitalistic home for these people who came out of the yoke of Soviet communism. Fabulous achievement. And yet, you've got economies inside the European Union who think that they can build a sustainable, competitive global economy by exporting subsidised olives in the common agricultural policy and importing BMWs.
That sounds
kind of work.
Do you want out at the moment? I mean, would you, if there was a vote...
At this moment, if there was no reform whatsoever, I believe that Europe is not fit for purpose for the United Kingdom, medium and small business. It might be OK for big businesses, right. but I would vote to stay in a reformed Europe.
But the whole point, a reformed Europe is not on offer.
And then it begs the question, what's a reformed Europe?
Well, it's not even been asked for. That's
right. Well, I mean,
just ask for business. At this particular moment, we're just about to finalise the digital single market, totally to our advantage, totally. UK. The services single market, totally to the UK's
We're in violent agreement. I'm not. If you notice, why is it you guys always go polemic, don't you? You guys are all about either yes, no.
It's not
Can't you understand that there's the average businesswoman in Britain, the average businessman in Britain actually looks at this holistically, and they look at it in global competitiveness. And there's some great stuff going on for Europe, but there's some great stuff that isn't.
Can I just say that John Cridland, though, head of the CBI, is all for in. Even I got the feeling if there isn't as much reform as there would be, and he thinks that he represents the voices of businessmen and businesswomen.
I think You never ever bought a house by offering the vendor the whole asking price on day one. And at the moment, the CBI have been engineered into a position where that's where they are. They need actually to take a deep breath. They need to go back to their roots and say, when the democratically elected Prime Minister of this country comes back with what he's going to put to the people, we, the CBI, will then poll our members and then tell you what it is. That's what it should be.
Can I just ask William Dartmouth, because those who wish to leave the EU often cite Norway as an example to follow, but you will know... No, but people do cite it. I mean, maybe not be you, but people do. But do you accept that even from Norway's perspective, certainly at an official level, the Foreign Minister recently wrote in The Guardian that Britain shouldn't choose his country as an example, as they would still have to accept freedom of movement and accept directives from Brussels. So this idea of being outside the EU but still in the sort of broader economic area, you would still be subject to those restrictions?
No. I've been trade spoken for 5 years. Not that anyone who ever watched the Daily Politics would ever know that. I've never been on it once.
Well, they do now.
They do now. They do now, indeed. We don't put forward the blueprint of either Norway or Switzerland, or for that matter Iceland, because we are the fifth largest economy in the world, and providing we don't have politicians at our head like David Cameron, who sells the past before it's even begun, we would be able to negotiate a much better arrangement.
What makes you think... Sorry, just on that.
Can I answer your second question?
Yeah, all right, then we'll come back.
Can I answer your second question? Yes. The fact of the matter is that in the European Union, we have 8.24% of the votes in the Council of Ministers. If Turkey gets in, which is what the Conservative Party and the Labour Party want, it'll be even fewer. MEPs aren't particularly important, but we have less than 10% of MPs. We have 1 out of 28 commissioners. We have and also, in the councils of the world, particularly in trade, our voice is muted as 1 out of 28. But the short answer to your question is, both Norway and Switzerland have better arrangements than we do, but we can do better than either of them.
What is absolutely extraordinary is the idea that we're pushed around by the dastardly foreigners when we're in the EU, and the day we come out of the EU, we're so strong, so powerful, got so much leverage that we're going to be able to get this phenomenal deal. But either one or the other.
First of all, on day one, we can reactivate our seat at the World Trade Organization, which has been in abeyance since 1973. No, World Trade Organization. Not immigration.
Right, but hang on,
we could no longer see, and we no longer have to have open borders.
William, one thing on that, what Lauren Sadler says, what does make you think, and you're so convinced that Brussels would negotiate for us such a great deal? I mean, why would they, if we pulled out, which they don't want us to do?
Well, I'd like to point out to you, if I may, that the 3 biggest exporters to the European Union, namely Russia, China and the United States, do not have a trade deal. 6 out of the 10 biggest exporters do not have a trade deal.
But you would want a trade deal.
11 out of 20 do not have a trade deal. So it's not absolutely necessary. But in practice, because we run a very, very large deficit, it's about £687 billion since we joined, a trade deal isn't necessary, but it's absolutely inevitable because it's in the economic interests of Brussels and Brussels businesses for there to be
let me just briefly move on to the issue of accessing in-work benefits.
Yeah.
You said that's trivial too. Is that important in your mind? If
totally.
If in-work benefits could be limited for 4 years...
Reform should go further than this, because what we need... I'll give you a good example. One of the companies I chair, we can't get enough engineers. We have job offers out to Indian university graduates, can't get them a visa because the government says they want to cut down in immigration. And yet we have unemployable... only because they can't speak English and aren't skilled, people from Eastern Europe who are sitting at our factory gates saying, give us a job.
As a right, yes.
As a right. But the point is, if we are looking at this as global competitiveness for the European Union, what we should be doing is we should actually be saying to these people who have no skill in Europe, I'm not going to give you money to subsidise your growing crops. I'm going to give you money to skill you up. And then you're very welcome to come to Britain.
All right, but on that basis,
at the moment, you're not fit for purpose.
How realistic is that? Because we've heard President Martin Schulz.
It's not an English exceptional issue.
Yes,
this should be a European Union.
Is it achievable? I mean, it's not achievable, is it? Under the current principles of the European Union, it is a cornerstone. It would be seen as discriminatory. So, in your mind, is it achievable for David Cameron to get 4 years, or will he have to impose the same restrictions on British citizens?
I mean, I think those negotiations are to be had, and there's going to be quite tough negotiations
But do you
both
think
sides.
it's achievable?
I mean, to be frank, the Poles don't want a lot of their very skilled and talented people to come to the UK.
So it's not achievable in your
But we've got to be really clear about the migration issue, and that is Brexit is not going to solve the migration issue unless we put absolutely the barriers up and in many ways create a sort of isolated country.
And I'm going to give William Dartmouth...
All you do is you put a condition of immigration on skill,
All right,
rather than on nationality.
let me give you... Hang on,
Let me just say,
yes.
Lord Digby-Jones made a terribly, terribly important point, which is this. Because we have opened doors to 450 million people in 27 member states of the European Union, it means that the whole weight of immigration control falls on people from outside the European Union. So, for instance, Indian engineering graduates can either not get here or get here with great difficulty. And that's an absolutely key point.
All right.
And in fact, and that's why our slogan is out of the EU into the world.
I'm going to have to end it there, but thank you both very much.